I'm your host, Roy. Of course, we are the podcast that brings you a wide variety of guests that can talk about a large, diverse set of topics. We want to try to provide help and support for all of our small businesses, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs that are out there. And today is no different. We have an awesome guest, Tim Fitzpatrick. I've been waiting. We had a schedule conflict, or actually had a power outage the last time we were scheduled. So I've been waiting for this for about the last 3 weeks. So Tim is an entrepreneur slash business owner with expertise in marketing and business growth. He has 20 plus years of entrepreneurial experience with a passion for developing and growing businesses. That passion served him well in operating and managing a wholesale distribution company he co-owned for 9 years. Then the company grew an average of 60% a year before being acquired in 2005. Since then, he has had failures and successes that have been very valuable learning experiences. He started Rialto Marketing in 2013 and has been helping service business simplify marketing so that they can grow with less stress. Most people overcomplicate marketing. It doesn't have to be that way. Tim, thanks so much. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Roy.
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, awesome. Less stress. We're all looking for that, especially in our marketing plan when we're up at nights, wringing our hands. But before we jump into the marketing aspect, tell us just a little bit. And I know I just read a little bit of your story, but kind of tell us how you found yourself here.
Yeah, so I'll try to make a long story somewhat short. You touched on the fact that I my first business that I got involved with was a wholesale distribution company. That was actually right out of college. I was not one of those people that was like an entrepreneur from, a young age. I wasn't, hawking stuff at garage sales and selling baseball cards. The only thing I cared about at that point was riding my bike and hanging out with my friends. So when I graduated from college, I still didn't really have any idea what I wanted to do. I was a math major. I was good with numbers, analytical, and I figured, hey, math is used all over the place, so there's got to be something I can do. So I got involved in this distribution company that was selling wholesale. We were selling wholesale, and we were selling home theater equipment, speakers, TVs, receivers. I mean, it was like toys.
Yeah.
And after the first 3 months of that, I was hooked. I loved it. I was the first full-time employee, and I ended up managing and running that company on a day-to-day basis. My other partners were involved, but they weren't involved on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And I learned more in 6 months of doing that than I did in 4 years of college.
Yeah.
It was just real world experience, feet on the ground, and I loved it. We were in at a good time. The company grew very quickly, and after we sold, I worked for the company that bought us for another 3 years, and then I actually stayed with them and moved from where I was in Northern California out to Denver with the company. And this was in the 2008 timeframe. So we all know what the hell happened in 2008.
Right.
And we got bought by a public company. And so in early 2009, they were starting to really freak out. They were starting to make decisions to manage based on the quarter and the quarterly financials rather than long-term thinking. They cut 30% of the branch locations we had across the country. And I got laid off. So they did me a favor. I wasn't happy at that point in time. I took a little bit of time off, tried to figure out what my next step was going to be. And I had always been interested in real estate. So I got my real estate license, started selling residential real estate. And man, I learned a ton doing that. I was putting myself outside of my comfort zone all the time, but I did not like it. It was not for me. It's a great living for some people. For me, I just reached the point where I was like, man, I don't want to go to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I said, I gotta do something different. What's the point in owning my own business if I'm not loving what I'm doing?
Right.
And that's when I decided to get into marketing after I kind of took a step back and said, man, what did I like about distribution? Because when I was in distribution, I felt like I didn't work. I loved it. And so I started thinking about that. And I said, look, I'm going to get involved in marketing. That has not been a straight path either. But, where we are today is we're working with service-based businesses, helping them simplify marketing. And we act as, a marketing consultant or an outsourced marketing partner for them and helping them actually implement.
Okay.
But what we really focus on first are the fundamentals, because those have to be in place to have long-term success.
Yeah, great. And that's kind of some notes I had taken here were starting back at the fundamentals, because so many times we just don't, it's like, oh, I don't know. I saw a digital ad or I heard something on TV. And so we're kind of off in that direction without really thinking about what is our overall plan. And we'll get into that for in just a minute. The one thing you did bring up in your going through your narrative there was chasing quarterly results. And I had the same experience when I worked for a large public company as well. Is like we changed our focus from long term and to this 3-month period. And the bad thing is we would do anything in our power to save $1 this quarter, only to spend $5 next quarter, or into the future. And so, I think what we can probably extrapolate that lesson into our marketing and our fundamentals, because marketing is, we hope we can send an email out, or we hope we can put up an ad and we get flooded with calls. But I'm just going to say that's not my experience. It's a long-term play trying to build those pipelines. And so taking this back to the fundamentals is really where we need to start. And so what, another thing that we talked about kind of with this fundamentals is actually taking the client and sitting down and talk with them. And so that's kind of how you start the process, if I'm not wrong, is trying to find out who they are, what they are, where their direction, where they want to go.
Yeah, we need to, in order to put a plan together of what somebody needs to do, you first need to establish a baseline.
Yeah.
Understand where they're at and where they're starting from, to determine what you need to do to get to where they want to be. Yeah. It's no different than my GPS. If I'm trying to go to Denver International Airport or Dallas Fort Worth Airport, right, I have to first tell my GPS where the hell I'm starting from. Otherwise, It ain't going to do anything.
Right.
And marketing is no different. Frankly, there's a lot of things in business that are no different. You have to establish that baseline, and then you can start to put the plan together of what you need to do to get to where you want to be and reach your goals.
Yeah. And that's on, I will say, I'll speak to the businesses and entrepreneurs, and that is a true, honest assessment of where we are. And, this is why professionals that help me, I love to work with people who I like and who I trust, because I need to be able to tell Tim and his team everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly, about where we're struggling and where we're failing. Because if we gloss over that, we're probably going to have a subpar plan that you end up rolling out.
Right. Well, think about it like this. Here's an analogy for you, because it's a great example. If somebody's sick and they go into the doctor, they're having pain in their gut or wherever, and they go in and the doctor says, well, why are you here? And they're like, well, I don't know. I want you to find out what's wrong. Well, where's the problem? Right. I don't know. Start feeling around and tell me. Right. It's like, that's never going to work.
Right.
You got to tell the doctor what the problem is so they can start honing in on it.
Yeah.
You have to give them the information they need to do their job.
Right.
And this is no different.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess the kind of the next part of that is that the developing an avatar for the consumer, because that's something else that I've heard some horror stories about in the last couple weeks. Is like, well, who is your consumer? Well, I don't know. He was the guy that walked through the door. The last guy that walked through the door, he clicked on the buy link, and that's the guy. It's like, well, So tell us a little bit, some things that we need to think about when we zero in on who is our client.
Yeah.
And the whys of that as well.
Yeah. So the way I look at the fundamentals, the first fundamental is this target market question. Who are you going to serve, and how are you going to serve those people? Everything from a marketing standpoint starts with your target market. If you don't know who your target market is and you just start acting, you're putting the cart before the horse, and You're going to waste time. You're going to waste money. There's so many of us. Look, I've made this mistake before. Tons of us have made this mistake. It's like you get into business, and who are you working with? Well, are you breathing? Do you have the money to pay me? Are you somewhat interested? Cool. Yes, I will work with you. And what we find when we do that is not everybody that we work with is great.
Right.
we may not like to work with them. They may not be profitable clients. We may not do great work for them. There's some clients that we do great work for, and there's others that we don't. And we need to hone in on that
Right.
so that we start to attract those people that we really want to work with. So the easiest place for most existing businesses to start with this, if you've been in business for a while, you've got existing customers, you've got past customers. I like to start by asking 3 questions. The first question is, who do you enjoy working with? Why the hell do you want to, I mean, owning a business is hard enough. Why do you want to pound your head against a wall working with clients that just make it difficult?
Right.
2, who are your most profitable clients? If we're going to stay in business and make money, we have to work with profitable clients. If we work with clients that aren't profitable, not only are we doing ourselves a disservice, we're doing our clients a disservice because we're not going to be in business to help them.
Right.
And the third question is, who do we do our best work for? Who do we get great results for? So the group of those clients that we answered positively to those 3 questions, that's where you start to identify your ideal client types. Most businesses have 1 to 3 ideal client types. I don't think you should have more than 3 because I think you're going to dilute your focus.
Okay.
So if you look at that subgroup that you answered positively to those 3 questions, now you can start to look at that group and start to look at the demographics, right? The numbers. Where do they live? How old are they? What kind of jobs do they have? Those types of things are demographics. And then you're also going to look at the psychographics. Psychographics have to do more with the feelings, what they are like as people. Yeah. What are their goals? What are their aspirations, their dreams? What common problems do they have that you can solve? Yeah. Those are the psychographics. And when you pull the demographics and the psychographics out of that group, inevitably what happens is subgroups come from that. Those subgroups are your ideal client types.
Okay.
And now when you know who your ideal client types are, the next thing you can start to do is look at, okay, where are these people? Where are they online? Where are they offline? So let's look at an example. Let's say I looked at my clients. Let's say we have a CPA, okay? We have a CPA firm and that we work with, and they have 2 different ideal client types, dentists and veterinarians. Okay, great. So we're trying to attract dentists. What associations do dentists belong to? The American Dental Association or whatever those may be. What manufacturers do they commonly buy from? Those manufacturers already have existing relationships, right? Maybe I can start to build referral partner relationships with some of these manufacturers. What websites do they frequent? What influencers do they follow in the dental space? What podcasts do they listen to? What YouTube channels do they follow? What groups do they belong to on Facebook or in LinkedIn? Right? These are all examples of areas that we can look at to start to create a list of where those dentists are. And once I have that list, now I know exactly where I need to be to put my message out there to get in front of those people. That's how this whole process starts to unfold.
Yeah, and I think that's it's kind of it's a major part, but it's a part I don't think we think about. It's like, well, who is this person that we want to sell to? But the other great thing about that is you find out, like you said, where do these people live? Because that's, where do they live online, basically, because that's where we are going to want to target our dollars because, I don't like to pick on Pinterest, but we'll pick on Pinterest for a moment. That, it's like, if I've got a B2B, that's not really where I'm probably going to want to spend a lot of my dollars unless I think it's more focused on, women, and I'm not even going to mention their age group, women of a certain age. So I don't get any bricks or something thrown at me from the other corner here. But, and so I think that's other great part of that is you find out where it helps us to zone in on where we really want to focus those dollars.
Otherwise, if we don't, we waste time and we waste money.
Right.
Because like before we jumped on the air here, you mentioned YouTube ads. Well, if I know that I'm trying to attract dentists and I want to take advantage of YouTube ads, am I going to going to start randomly putting YouTube ads up on any video? No, absolutely not, because I'm just going to waste time and money.
Right.
I'm going to identify what YouTube channels do dentists frequent, and then guess what? I'm going to put my ads on their videos.
Yeah.
That is much more targeted. You're going to get much better results, and the message you communicate is much more targeted to those people, and you're naturally going to attract those people and get better results.
Right.
It's a very simple example, but this happens all the time.
Yeah.
Where people are like, yeah, I'm trying to attract, I work with small business owners. Well, that's great, but Jesus, they're everywhere. What types of small business owners are you trying to attract?
Right.
You know, it needs to be specific enough where when people read what you're saying, they can at least say to themselves, you know what, Roy's talking to me.
Right.
So it has to be that specific. It doesn't have to be, you know, we work with, you know, underwater basket weavers that are located in Dallas, Texas. It doesn't have to be that specific.
Right.
But it has to be specific enough where they read it and they go, oh my God, he's talking to me, or she's talking to me, or they're talking to me. If you're good, if that happens.
Right. Right. Yeah. And and that's I guess the breadth of this is so wide, you know, we have to narrow our focus because nobody has just enough money to throw it to all corners of the world. And so, you know, some of us with very limited budgets, we're definitely trying to narrow that focus where we get the biggest bang for our buck.
You hit the nail on the head. I use Amazon as an example for this all the time. They didn't start out selling everything to everybody. They started out as an online book seller. And after they nailed that niche, they started to expand.
Right.
Well, they can target a lot of people now because they have more money than God.
Right.
You know, but most small business owners do not have an unlimited budget.
Right.
You have to make sure, you have to hone in, because if you're trying to target everybody, you need to have a huge budget in order to do so. Yeah. And if you don't, then you have no business trying to do that.
Yeah. And it may be, it's a little different, I guess, in a product environment, a little, but not quite. But like in the service business, you brought up a good point, is that, you know, we want to work with people who we want to work with. I know in the beginning, sometimes we take on people we may not, but the reality is that there are some people that are slow pay to no pay. There are people that really suck all of your time and energy, that, you know, you have this scope of work, but it just never seems to end. And nothing worse than having to fire a client. You know, it happens all the time. But I think this also helps us to say, who do you really want to work with? You know, like in my practice, do I want to, you know, like the CPA you're using, if they know the ins and outs of the dental industry, then, well, by far, I can talk to the dentist in an intelligent manner versus, you know, maybe a offshore drilling company that's like, well, I wouldn't even know where to begin talking with them about, you know, their business structure and their write-offs and how we do all this stuff. But if you kind of hone in on that niche, it's a much easier conversation starter as well.
And you can start to use language that's familiar to them.
Right.
You know, like dentists don't call their business a business, it's a practice.
Right.
Even just that simple thing can make a huge difference, you know? So there's a lot of nuances. And when you understand your target market, your ideal clients well enough where you can start to enter the conversation that they're having in their head, they're going to say, oh my God, Roy is speaking to me.
Yeah.
Or Tim is speaking to me. That's what we want to have happen.
Yeah, and you mentioned the psychographics for a minute. We don't have to get too deep, but it's important. And I think about myself when I go buy a car, because me and Terry, my partner, we're very different in this aspect. I don't need to touch it, smell it, feel it. I don't need to fall in love with it. I need something that has got 4 wheels, an engine. Hopefully it's all enclosed where I don't get wet when it's raining. You know, a heater's nice and air conditioning's even better. But, you know, she is more on the, oh, it's red. You know, it has this and it has that. She is more of that person that, you know, you really need to talk. And like, you know, I've got a lady I've been dealing with for years. That's why I love her, because she doesn't call and try to give me that stuff. I mean, we had this conversation, the very first car I bought from her about 15 years ago. I was like, I am not going to fall in love with it. I don't want to hear all that. Give me this model with these features, best price, bottom line. That's all I'm looking for.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. The psychographics, to me, the psychographics are equally, if not more important than the demographics, because the psychographics are what really get people hooked into what you're saying, and that's what gets people to buy.
Yeah.
It's the psychographics, it's the results they're looking for, the problem that they have. Super important. So you don't want to skip that aspect of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's another thing is, we're trying to solve problems. We're trying, we think about it in this way. Like a guy was telling me one time, he had a post hole digging company, and he's like, I structure my advertising for people who need holes in the ground, not people that need a post hole digger, because they don't need a post hole digger. They need a hole somewhere in the ground.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
So, trying to really get to the root of what problem are we trying to solve, or what benefit do we have for the individual that we're selling to? I'm sure that's a very important part of this.
Super important, right? Which kind of leads us into that next marketing fundamental, which is your messaging. And there's so many people that make the mistake of focusing their message on their business. And you just kind of touched on this. Our customers don't care about us.
Right.
What they care about is how we can help them solve the problem they have and help them get to where they want to be. And so our messaging needs to focus on that.
Right.
It also needs to be clear and engaging. If it's not clear, right, if we confuse people, we're going to lose them. We are so short on attention spans at this point.
Yeah.
If I land on your website and I can't quickly, without scrolling down the page, have a general idea of what you do and what the benefit in working with you is, I'm moving on.
Right.
And so many people make that mistake, and it doesn't need to be that way.
Yeah.
So how do we fix that? We use a storytelling framework. I did not create this, Roy, but it just works. It makes sense to people, and it gives you a playbook that, from a messaging standpoint, you can come back to each and every time.
Yeah.
So you're not reinventing the wheel. So if we look at how are most stories structured? There's a hero or a main character. They have a problem, right? Without a problem, there is no story. So there's got to be a problem. They meet a guide. The guide knows exactly what they need to do because the guide was in the hero's shoes. They know how to solve the problem.
Yeah.
So they call them to action. They give them a plan that calls them to action so that they can avoid failure and they reach success. So let's see what that looks like. One of my favorite movies is the original Point Break with Keanu Reeves. You ever seen that?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Okay. So he's an FBI agent. He's green. He's a rookie. The problem, the ex-presidents is this band of bank robbers robbing banks in Southern California. The guide is his crazy FBI partner, Gary Busey. He's been there, done that, seasoned. And he says to Keanu Reeves, he's like, look, I believe the ex-presidents are surfers. So the call to the plan is you need to learn how to surf so that you can befriend these guys and infiltrate them. So the call to action is you're going to learn how to surf so that hopefully we avoid failure, which is the ex-presidents get away, and we reach success, which is we catch them and they go to jail. Okay, so that's a simple example. How do we apply that to our business? What we do is we take that same framework and we're inviting your customers, who are the main character or hero in the story, and you are the guide. Why are you the guide? You're the guide because you know exactly how to solve the customer's problem. Yeah. The customer is not looking for another hero.
Right.
They're looking for a guide that knows exactly what they need to do. So we use this framework and start putting in these elements that position you as the guide and them as the hero. And then every time you need to create a message, you come back to the framework and you pull the elements you need and you move forward. And it helps you eliminate those two common problems of I make it difficult for people to understand what I do, and I don't focus my message on what's going to help my customers survive and thrive.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you mentioned this earlier about it's not making we want to be the hero to solve the problem, but it's not making it all about us. And I'll just say that that's a big turnoff for me is when the message is all about how great you are, not about the solution or how much I'm hurting with this problem. That's what I
Yeah.
want to know. I want to know that you understand how bad that I'm hurting and I need this solution.
How have you ever seen? I think we've all seen these videos where, or ads where the person that's there they're talking about themselves, right?
Right.
It's like, hey, look at look at all the things that I've done. Here's my $1 million house. Here's my freaking boat. Yada yada yada.
Right.
I don't know about you, but when I see that stuff, I'm like, oh my God, what a blowhard.
Yeah.
I I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, look, that obviously works with a certain subset of the population.
Yeah.
But I also think, and maybe that just works for the type of people that you want to attract.
Right.
I'm not that type of person's ideal client because I see that and I'm totally turned off.
Right.
So, but that's also part of understanding your target market.
Right.
Maybe their target markets totally respond to that because they want that.
Yeah.
I look at that and I just go, well, okay, that doesn't mean that you do a great job.
Right.
That just means you're a great salesperson.
Exactly.
So, or it could mean that you just rented that whole thing and shot that video and now you're going somewhere else. I don't know. So you got to understand who your target market is, and then your message has to focus on how you can help them.
Yeah.
You only talk about yourself enough to position yourself as the guide.
Right.
And guides have two qualities. They show empathy. I understand what it's like to be in your shoes. And they have credibility and authority. I don't need to talk about myself a ton. I can use 2 or 3 testimonials. I can use logos for certifications, awards that we've won, high profile clients we may have worked with. Those are all ways to help establish and position yourself as the guide, but you don't need a ton of it to do so.
Yeah, it's always better to have somebody else telling people how great you are versus you having to resort to do that.
That's exactly right.
I learned that raising kids. Well, so let's talk about the integration for a minute because, we've got our path, we've got our messaging, our target market, but, we want to build unless we find somebody that just lives in one space, most of the time we may have to go over 3 or 4 channels. So we want to make sure that we get the exponential benefit from that because, if we spend our money correctly and have the right campaigns, we should be better off for each dollar we spend across these, we should get, a higher return than just pouring it maybe into one.
Yeah. So I want to pull something out that you just said, because I think it's really, really important. I think your business is very vulnerable if you're generating all your leads from one channel.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of small businesses that build their business on referral in the beginning, and it's a great way to build your business. But if you're 100% referral, it's a very vulnerable place to be. I think you need to be generating leads from at least 3, if not 4 or more channels. I think your business will be much more predictable if you do so. That's the first thing. Now, when it comes to putting a plan together, I like to keep things simple. Too many people overcomplicate things. If the beginning of 2020, you would have spent thousands of dollars on a 1-year marketing plan, come March, most of us would have burned it or put it up on a shelf to collect dust. Yeah. I think our businesses are evolving quickly and our marketing needs to evolve with that. And so the way I look at marketing plans is in 90-day sprints. They're short sprints. We keep them simple. The plan and the template we use, and by the way, all the resources that we've been talking about, your listeners can get for free. We'll talk about that later, but okay. I don't keep any of this stuff secret, okay? But there's 6 steps in this 90-day plan. First step, who's your target market? At a minimum, I want you to have a paragraph for each of your ideal clients. Who are they? Statistically, what are they? The demographics, and then get some of those psychographics in there. What type of people are they? Okay. If you have a paragraph on each of your ideal clients, you're ahead of most businesses, because most businesses do not have that down on paper. It's on the plan because I want it to be top of mind of who you intend to attract.
Yeah.
The second step is, what's your goal? What's my goal for the next 90 days? It needs to be specific. It needs to be measurable. It is time bound because this is a 90-day plan. So maybe my goal is I intend to bring on 10 new clients in the next 90 days. That's specific. It's measurable. I know I either hit it or I didn't. It's not arbitrary.
Yeah.
The third step is, what's my budget and what are my resources? Do I have $500 a month to invest? Do I have $5,000 a month to invest in my marketing? From a resources standpoint, I'm talking about staff time. Like, do I have time to invest in this? Do I have other people on board that have time to invest in it? It's also capability. Just because, Gina on my staff has 5 hours to dedicate to social media each week, does she understand social media enough to do that work?
Yeah.
If she doesn't, then that's not going to be a good fit. So we have to look at all of that stuff from a budget and a resource standpoint, and that gives us an idea of what we have to work with. The fourth step is, what's my current marketing plan? And when I say that, Roy, I know that a lot of people don't have a current marketing plan. That's okay. We just need to get down on paper where we're starting from. It's that reference point. It's that baseline. Yeah. And when I look at where we're starting from, I look at 8 main marketing channels. All the tactics can go into any one of these. Okay. So first, you have strategy or your fundamentals, your target market, your messaging. That's where everything starts. Your next channel is your website. Then you have content. Am I creating a blog? Do I have a podcast? Am I doing video? Then you have SEO, right? Helping you get found in search results. Social media. I've got email marketing, paid advertising like Google ads or Facebook ads, and then offline marketing. Am I doing speaking, networking? Am I in a referral group? Am I doing direct mail advertising? All those types of things. All I want you to do in this phase is just write down, do you have this dialed in? What are you doing? Are you not using this channel? You don't have to be in every one of those channels to be successful. We just want to get an idea of where you're starting from.
Yeah.
And then in the next step, the fifth step is, what am I going to focus on in the next 90 days? What you focus on in the next 90 days is going to depend on where you're starting from and the budget and the resources that you have. If it's just me and I don't have a budget and I just have my time, well, I may only focus on one channel and getting that up to speed. If you don't know your target market and you don't have good messaging, you have to start there.
Yeah.
You must. From there, you got to have your website, okay? And it's got to have good content, clear calls to action, telling people what you want them to do when they're on your website. And then from there, you can expand. One of the tools that is in the free resources is a checklist that I call the Evolution Index checklist, that looks at businesses in 3 phases as you start to grow. And it looks at each of the channels we talked about. And there's just a checklist of, hey, if you're in phase 1 of your website, these are some of the things you should think about having in place. So it gives people kind of a guidepost that they can look at. Okay, I've done these things. Here's the next logical step for me if I want to focus on my website or I want to focus on my social media. Yeah. Because that's a really common question people ask is, okay, well, I know where I'm starting from. How do I know what to focus on in the next 90 days? Use the Evolution Index checklist to give you some ideas of where you may want to focus. And then the last step in this plan is the metrics. What metrics am I going to track? The metrics give us an idea of whether the actions we're taking are actually having an impact or not.
Yeah.
Keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. I was a math major. I can dig into the weeds, but there's so many vanity metrics when it comes to marketing.
Right.
I have X amount of people on my email list, or I have these number of followers on social media. Who cares? How many leads are you generating, and how many of those leads are you converting to customers?
Right. That's
what you really want to know. I think you can start to get more sophisticated and advanced as you move down the road, but keep this simple. Focus on 1 to 3 metrics initially that are going to give you an idea of where you need to go. But when you
Yeah.
do this and you put this in place, all you do is at the end of 90 days, you look at what worked, what didn't, adjust your plan moving forward, and you wash, rinse, and repeat.
Yeah.
It keeps you focused so you know exactly, hey, the next 90 days, these are the actions that I'm focusing on.
Right.
So that next week, when somebody says, oh my God, Tim, you have to be on Clubhouse, it is the newest, hottest place to be. You're missing out on leads and blah, 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 blah. I have the discipline and the focus to be able to go, you know what? I may have some interest in that, but right now, until I get these other things in place, I'm not going to focus on that.
Yeah.
Or at least if I choose to focus on that, I know I can adjust my plan. You can adjust your plan. That's okay. This is not set in stone. But in the absence of having a plan, everything that comes across your desk is going to look like an opportunity.
I was just fixing to say that is that, I think part of the plan, the value of that is to keep us from being, like the squirrel and the shiny object is like,
Yes.
it's like somebody, because we talk to people and they're like, oh, well, this worked for me. Okay, well, I'm abandoning, I'm 3 weeks in or 2 weeks into what I just started. I haven't given it a chance to work. So I'm going to abandon it and I'm moving to this next thing, which I will probably give 2 weeks, abandon it and move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And the other thing that you mentioned, I like to talk about, a little bit is the metrics and a couple things, the vanity metrics. We've got to be so careful because, I kind of tell the story that one time I posted something, I got 1,000 likes, and that evening we went to the Mexican restaurant to celebrate, and we ordered some, margaritas and a big plate. And then when the lady brought the check, I'm like, oh, here, I've got 1,000 likes. I'm going to trade those in for, for this meal that we just had. And she's like, yeah, well, that's not going to work. So, we've got to be able to think about these, what actually makes us money. I guess the vanity part of it is good because we're getting exposure, but it's not the end all be all. Maybe it gives us a point to look at the kind of content that gets people's attention if it's in a good way, because my reality is you get 1,000 likes and no phone calls, it doesn't matter. You get 1 like and 1 phone call, that's the magic right there.
Yeah. Well, and think about how empowering it is if let's say I know that for every 5 leads I generate, 1 of those converts to a customer.
Yeah.
Now I've got a really actionable information and I can start to focus on, okay, well, what types of things can I do to generate 5 leads so that I get 1 customer?
Right.
Most people have no idea what that number is for their business. And when they know that, it becomes a very empowering thing to figure out. And once you have that, then you can start to work your way backwards and figure out, okay, well, can we start to tie the number of leads we generate to website visits or to email list signups? Right. And if you can do that, all these numbers start to come together and things become a lot more predictable when you can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And in big corporations, I talk a lot about silos, is that, there has to be communication between sales and marketing, because the reality is marketing can be doing an awesome job in driving tremendous traffic to us. If they're not our buying public, it doesn't matter. And, I kind of use the example of if you're selling adult beverages and marketing puts on this awesome campaign and we've got, 12-year-olds ringing our phone off the hook, it's been a successful campaign and the fact that we generate a lot of interest, but we didn't generate dollars, which is really what we want to do. And kind of taking that to the smaller businesses, I always tell everybody, don't be afraid to ask, where'd you hear about us? Why are you calling? We can say it a little nicer than that, but basically we want to know, where did this interest come from? Keep a checklist of that, because it'll get more important, not just to know where the traffic is coming from, but we can also tell, okay, we had 100 calls from Facebook that turned into 0 buyers. We did this thing on Instagram. We had 50, but we got 5 buyers. You can really start to see the picture much more clear, not just on, is the phone ringing?
Yep. Yep, absolutely. And I think you bring up a really good point about that handoff between marketing and sales. I've never understood in some companies, sales and marketing are almost adversarial in some companies.
Exactly.
And it's just, that's never going to work.
Right.
You know, when we talk about like our marketing message, that message that we use to attract people needs to filter down into the sales process, the sales conversations. And frankly, after that, it needs to go into customer service. All those departments should be saying the same thing.
Right.
Otherwise, there's no consistency. And, you know, somebody gets attracted from marketing. And then if somebody in sales is hitting on a different problem, the person's like, what the hell? I thought you solved this problem.
Yeah.
You know, so all those things have to be in concert,
Right.
but it starts with marketing.
Yep. Yeah, and you know, one thing that dialogue is, you know, because I've been on both sides of that coin, and it's like you know, sales is always like, you send me these people that I've had to call 12 times, and they, you know, you send me the hardest people, but you know, that dialogue has to be constructive and it has to be inclusive, where we can, you know, we want to look at it as solving problems. We want to bring all of those groups to the table to say our end game is to sell this product or service. Now, how can we tweak all this? Because you know, especially in marketing, you can't just say, well, I just developed the very awesome, most awesomest plan ever. So don't tell me it's not working if, you know, if the phone's not working, or if the phones aren't ringing, or if we're not selling anything. It's not.
Yeah. I think all the departments need to be open-minded and
Right.
have an open line of communication, because sales can give marketing awesome information.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, hey, the leads that you've been bringing in from this campaign, they're fantastic. Here's why. Here's what's happening. And it's like, okay, great. Well, why was that the case? And how can we recreate that in other channels?
Right.
Or it's like, hey, these coming in, they're not good.
Right.
And here's why.
Right.
And then marketing can take that information and make better decisions about where the money needs to be invested to improve that.
Right. Right. No, that is so true. So true. Well, Tim, I know we are running long on time. Any other points you want to leave us with before
all
we get to
good.
that?
You know, I would just say, don't skip the fundamentals.
Yeah.
If you skip the fundamentals, you're going to waste time. You're going to waste money. One of my favorite quotes about the fundamentals was from Michael Jordan, where he said, get the fundamentals down and the level of everything you do will rise.
Yeah.
Professional sports players make things look easy because they have the fundamentals nailed. You don't see Michael Jordan shooting free throws for 5 hours, you know,
Right.
but because those fundamentals are in place, everything that they do on that court or on that field is better. It's the same thing with your marketing. So don't skip them. You will waste time and money if you do. So I would just like to leave people with that.
Yeah.
And, you know, if they want more info, on our website, rialtomarketing.com, run the roads, get the consult button there, be happy to chat with you and help give you some clarity on where to focus. And we did put that resource together with all the free resources for the marketing fundamentals, which is at rialtomarketing.com/the-biz-of-business.
Okay. Awesome. And yeah, we will be sure and put that in the notes as
Absolutely. If people want more information, they can go to our website at rialtomarketing.com. That's RIALTO marketing.com.
Okay.
If they want those free resources that I touched on earlier to help implement those marketing fundamentals we talked about, they can go to rialtomarketing.com/the-business-of-business.
Okay.
If they get stuck, they're hitting roadblocks with their marketing, just hit the get a free consult button that is all over our website.
Okay.
Be happy to chat with you for a few minutes and help you gain some clarity on where to focus your marketing efforts
All right.
next.
All right. Great, Tim.
That's it, man.
Thanks so much.
I really appreciate the time.
Hey, you bet. Thanks for the great information. It's always good. Two things: start at the beginning, and then also it's that whole iceberg thing that all the work is underwater. It's those, you know, the end results are what we see on top, but there's a lot of work that goes into that. So anyway, y'all reach out. Let's see how Tim can help you and increase your marketing, increase your customers, and hopefully have a lot of success. So that's going to do it for another episode of the Business of Business podcast. I'm your host, Roy. Of course, you can find us at www.thebusinessofbusinesspodcast.com. We are on all the major social media networks as well as the major podcast platforms, iTunes, Stitcher, Google, Spotify. If we're not on one that you listen to, please reach out. I'd be glad to get you added. And a video of this will go up too when it goes live. So until next time, y'all take care of yourself and take care of your business.